This is Independent Voice, and I am Mamme. Welcome, candidate in Congress, Steve Monahan. Thank you so very much for actually accepting this invitation and having a conversation with me. Before we get into my questions, if you would please take a moment and introduce yourself and maybe include the issues that you're running for.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Stephen Monahan. I'm running for U.S. Congress in the 6th District, which a lot of the people that you represent and will be watching live in. It's all of Aurora to Centennial, Greenwood Village, Littleton, Carroll, so a lot of the Denver metro area. I'll give a little bit on my background. I'm married, 3 kids. I spent 20 years in the U.S. Navy and still counting. I'm still reservist. Enlisted officer, became a Navy pilot. So I have a pretty wide experience all across the globe, quite frankly, to include Africa. While I've never been to Ethiopia, I have been to pretty much the entire West Coast. So I do have quite a bit of interaction with different African nations. So it gives me a little bit of appreciation for what's going on there. As far as issues go, I'll stick with the domestic, and then we can talk about the international. But what I will say is, what I've noticed from the Ethiopian community in general is they reached out right away, and I think that is because there's nobody listening. Your current representation, kind of pitted you against each other a little bit, and then played off enough of it to get your votes, and then ran away. I would shake hands with people in the community, and the first statement they would say is, "That guy betrayed us." And the worst thing you could do is tell people that you have their best interest and then never communicate back to them. Never talk with them, don't see them, and don't hear out what their most important issues are. And a lot of people, from the Ethiopian community in particular, are first generation. So what happens back home is very important. Mom, dad, aunts, uncles, people back home, and you care about it. And the USA has a hand in what goes on there, and probably not a very good one at the moment with the current administration. And you want your U.S. congressman to have an idea what's going on, be able to communicate. I think this community can, especially with the entire diaspora there of the African immigrant community, they can shift this election so that no one ever ignores you again. I'm making that promise now to not ignore you. I have a high appreciation of those communities, of those countries, and of immigrants. I served with them in the U.S. military. We had a ton of African immigrants coming through the military to get their citizenship, everywhere from Ghana to Cameroon, Senegalese, Liberians even, a whole group of people. So I think I'll make a better fit because I'm making this promise and I plan to keep it. And if I don't keep it, get someone new. From the domestic issues, every immigrant wants opportunity. They want education. They want to know their tax dollars. I mean, I've talked to so many of the Ethiopian community. They're working 2 jobs. They own a business. They're working a second job. They're working their butts off. And they don't like the idea where their tax money's going right now. Neither does any other American. But it stings for the immigrant because you came here for opportunity. You came here so that your kids would get an education, and you're seeing weird things go on in school that's not reading and writing. That's not my kids aren't going to be doctors learning about pronouns in school. Both of those things, serious issues, and crime. You come to this community, you come to Colorado because it's a safe place, and they messed that up. Quite frankly, they messed that up. State leadership plays a huge part in that, but a U.S. congressman can do a lot. They can pick up a phone and make anybody talk to another person. When it comes to the most important things for this community, it's going to be their opportunity for success and what their children can achieve and what they're getting for their hard-earned dollars. I think I have better ideas.
Thank you so very much. I'm so glad you've taken a few minutes to talk about what you've observed and what you're willing to do for the community, and you've touched upon some of the questions that I've been preparing to ask you. So because it is in our minds and our thoughts, and this is something that has been very important to all of us within the Ethiopian and the African community, as far as what's happening in Ethiopia. I do have a set of questions related to that, and then I will come back to some of my questions that pertain to the local issues here. So to begin with, the foreign policy between the US and Africa has not been reformed for over 2 decades. Do you believe a reform is needed? And would you support it?
Yeah, people are dying. So you have real political strife in multiple countries, but in particular Ethiopia, and strife renewing again, needs to be reformed, and we need some oversight, transparency. Quite frankly, you need your representative to go. It's not that hard. Jason Crow had no problem going to Ukraine a couple times. Maybe you should go to Ethiopia.
Mm-hmm.
You've got 50,000 people in his district. I don't know how many Ukrainians are in his district, but it's not 50,000. Maybe it's time to go to Ethiopia and see what's going on and see if he can help. Let's help. Let's see what we can do. I know the Biden administration seems to be causing problems in Ethiopia. I don't know, but that's something that we should be communicating back to you. It's just not. It's more of the same. No communication, no oversight. So would I advocate reform when people are dying? Anything's better than people dying. So yes.
Awesome. So I might take you up on that. If or when you are elected, hopefully you can buckle up and prepare yourself to go to Africa, because that is very simple to do. You're right. It's very easy to do. So thank you for that answer. So related to that, given the recent fallout with Ethiopia's stance to defend its territories against the terrorist group TPLF and maintain peace, several punitive actions have been taken against Ethiopia. Are you familiar with those? And what is your opinion of the action taken thus far? What role should the federal government play in a matter of foreign countries? If elected, what would be your stance regarding a country's right to defend its borders and handle its internal political and economic issues?
So I'll answer the last one first. It belongs to Ethiopia. Only Ethiopians can fix Ethiopia. Americans are not going to fix Ethiopia for itself. That's been tried so many times, and it never works out right. Even the Ethiopians who are proud Americans and Ethiopians, they can help Ethiopia, but the federal government makes a mess of everything here. And so to defend your borders, absolutely. I'm for defending American borders. I'm absolutely for Ethiopia defending its own borders. When it comes to the punitive measures of the U.S. government, I'm not a fan of punitive measures very much at all. If it was the only tool we had, but there's civil strife. This isn't Ethiopia as a bad actor. It's trying to punitive measures against one part. It seems like everybody wants unity in that country. So especially here, from what I've been told, they want unity. I don't think coming in there and with the federal government, and like I said, again, they're not very good at doing anything. So coming in there and providing punitive measures, I'd prefer to make economic partnerships with a wider variety of Ethiopia as a way to bring everybody together instead of just penalize everybody without getting into specifics. And when it comes to specifics and policy, I would have a community of 50,000 people that could come talk to me and give me their advice and what they actually see in their own country, as opposed to just taking whatever federal official from the U.S. government told me is true. And once again, go see it with my own eyes.
Wow. Thank you. So glad to hear you say that. So following up with that, just bear with me. I have a couple more questions related to that. As you would imagine, I think anybody could say this. When war breaks out in a country, communities that live abroad are impacted, right? I mean, the war is happening in Ethiopia. We're impacted here. Due to the ongoing conflict, communities are somewhat polarized about the internal and external issues here and elsewhere. What actions, particularly pertaining to the communities here, what action would you take to work with all members of the various communities in your district? And how would you represent the various voices in Washington?
Do you mean inside the Ethiopian community?
Yeah, I would say the Ethiopian community. I would say the African community. How would you represent those various voices, opinions, and whatnot in Washington?
So I would say this for all the African communities, for the diaspora here. Do you feel like America is succeeding? Do you feel like your opportunity is brightening, that the education is getting better? I'd be really surprised if someone said yes right now, no matter what you're being sold. If you're being, maybe you're being sold that people on the right or Republicans don't want you here. False. That's certainly not this one. That we don't appreciate you. No, I've long since said we appreciate you and we need you. What I want to make sure is that everything you came here for is bigger, better, and brighter. I don't think that's up for question. There's going to always be a few people that no matter what you tell them, they think it's great. They think it's awesome. They think the fact that you can't buy a house in Denver for under $500,000 is a good thing. They think you can't tell them that groceries going up 15, 20%, annually, and healthcare costs skyrocketing, jobs starting to disappear. They don't see it. Those are the kitchen table issues. And I promise you, my kitchen table looks just like your kitchen table. Mm-hmm. And you know what? I wanted to have a whole lot more food and a better conversation. My kids be able to read and write better. I don't think it's polarizing for me to say I want those things for my children. And I want them for yours. When it comes to issues back home, I do understand there is some sensitivity in the Ethiopian community with some different groups, different opinions, but everybody wants unity. Nobody wants killing. And we want to come up with a solution. There will always be those that want to push and fight for power. And I think, but the majority of people here, they want those back home to remain safe. They would like some prosperity back home. And they want someone that can go over there and not pick a winner and a loser, not pick a side, but try to get the sides to come together. And the only way you could do that is go there, talk to your community. That would be both things. Go there, talk to those communities, come back, talk to your communities. And that's how you're going to bridge the divide. It won't be some magical decision we make. It's communication. It's realizing that we're each other's neighbors and neither of us actually wants to hurt the other one. And once we can communicate that back and forth, that's how we'll bridge the gap, and we'll get people to come together, and we'll stop all the violence in Ethiopia, hopefully, and try to get some prosperity. And then back home, like I said, I think everybody's in agreement with what they actually want.
Right. And thank you for that. So let's just talk maybe a little bit more about what you just said. Depending on who's talking to who and who is listening to who, we do see different opinions about different things, stuff that's happening locally, stuff that's happening, obviously foreign policies and different things. My question to you is, in the past, however many years we've been involved within the community, we try to promote the unity that we've been talking about even more so the last few years, right? Amongst the African community, amongst the Ethiopian community. And sometimes we all know politics is politics, right? And it adds to the level of division, the level of polarization amongst Ethiopians or amongst the African community, because somebody says, this is what you ought to get, this is what we believe benefits you, the divide and conquer type of thing, right? How would you become that, maybe a catalyst to bring some level of unity in the messaging itself when you go to Washington, D.C., once you are in an office, to represent a united voice and not necessarily get pulled into one direction?
Yeah, so how would you provide a unified front? Is one, I'm not there to serve the Republican Party. I'm there to serve the 6th district. Like I said, again, it is a lot of communication. It's a lot of leadership. Being into the community. So if you're representing that community, it means that you can go there and talk to each group. You can show up. Long time, Republicans haven't shown up. When it comes to, to politics and what people will sell you, mm-hmm. it's very, if you really want to cut through it, it's very easy. What is their success? Mm-hmm. And if you just can't come up with, and talking about something being success isn't success. Success is more money in your pocket, a better education for your kids, and your car and house not getting broken into. Those are real, tangible successes. And the current direction doesn't have it. So how would we do different? There's a lot of policy stuff that can be done. There'll be, and that's like getting into specifics, but ultimately it's bringing some of your hard-earned tax dollars back to you, or letting you keep more of them. That would be like the first step. And then, like I said, the second step for unity, it will always be communication and leadership. Can you get leaders together? Republicans don't show up to events. They need to show up. I show up. We're starting to show up. Mm-hmm. The Democrats have been showing up and telling you a bunch of not very true things. And you now have no success, in your community, and you have a foreign policy. It's not working very well. So Republicans are showing up now, and we actually want to know. I care about people, and I care about the people in my district. It doesn't matter where they came from. It doesn't matter the color of their skin, their religion, or their creed. So I really do think it is leadership that provides unity. So I would just like to bridge the gap. Come in there and talk with whatever group. And if someone's like, hey, these groups don't necessarily get along, but I can go talk to them individually and then talk to them together, and it helps. But it takes my time. But that's what I'm offering. That's what I said. It's like, I'm not just trying to get some spot and swindle your vote away from you. It's what I'm going to go to Washington, D.C. based on what you told me is important. Mm-hmm. Then I'm going to come home. I'm going to tell you how I voted for you, how I represented you. I'm going to listen to what your new issues are. And then if I can make liaisons, make connections between people, that's what we'll do. And that's 100% possible. That is a lot of what, congressional leaders should be doing. That's how. I'd love to give you some more specifics, like I said, but there's no magic pill on how we get all of the great things that you want all of a sudden.
Great, as long as you're willing to really, like I said, my issue is sometimes people do get caught up with this group and that other group, and then you just turn your back on this other group because this other group is saying this. I think leadership, you keep talking about leadership as a leader. A leader is supposed to lead everyone and not necessarily one or the other, right? You continue to come back to your district, and I'm going to ask you specifically questions related to that. So another thing that is also important to us here locally in the community is school districting, right? What is your position on school district choice? Do you support families being able to choose to the school district of their choice?
Absolutely, but the state will choose that, not the federal level. So I'd like to say I could do it as a U.S. congressman. Again, all I could do would be start the conversations and leadership if it's important to your group. But I tell you, if you have 50,000 people who that's important to, school choice and choosing where you go to your schools, choice of schools or school choice, slightly different, but same concept, more choice for parents, that starts to move the needle. And so if I can speak somewhat with the voice of people who elected me there and say, hey, these people want this, then your state will have to start choosing to allow it, your state and your district. But no, I'm a fan because I just think it's important. Once again, your tax dollars are going to an education. And if you don't like that education, I think you should be able to choose to get a different one with your own money. Kind of
true. Speaking of which, and the reason why I think people are looking to choose where their kids go to school is because of that same reason, right? Not every district is the same. I've raised 2 children. I've done my homework. I know why I'm saying that. Some districts are just not doing well. And if a choice for that family is for the child to go elsewhere for education, why not give people that choices? Apparently, we allow people to choose about so many different things, right? When it comes to education, I always wonder, so why are we not allowing people to choose where their kids go to school? So I just wanted to see where you stand with that, because we do need support in that area. So thank you for that answer.
anybody's ever asking, where do you stand? I want as much freedom for the individual as possible.
I'm kind of stepping into the local issues, but I might come out of it just for a minute. So here's the thing. We're also talking about, and like everybody else, we are worried and concerned about the increasing level of crime, right? And I'm going to attach it to the immigration reform, right? So the situation with maybe immigration policies, immigration reform. First of all, do you support a comprehensive immigration reform? Do you see the need for one? If elected, what would be your priorities to change the current system, whether it's in the state or whether it's at the federal level? We are concerned that individuals that have committed war crime, atrocious violence against innocent citizens can and will infiltrate the refugee or immigration system and come here and cause that same atrocity, not against the local community, like the immigrant community or whatever community they belong to, but the American citizens. We've been saying this the last 2-3 years. Well, if we're going to protect the communities here and if we're going to protect the American people, then immigration reform is indeed needed. But then you look at it and we're like, but that's not what we meant. We're not necessarily saying this other thing. We want to make sure that the system, the process is tight enough that because of certain political inclinations and because of certain people having an up and arm in certain places, the system isn't going to be infiltrated.
Well, you're totally right that what will be the communities that they come from and identify, because that's where they will go first. So you will be the most likely victims. And I would like to say that just something you said, kind of the immigrant communities or the American communities. I see you as the same thing. You said something very valuable too. It's not just the immigrant communities, but also the American community. And what you said was, it's these people may be coming here to cause problems or terrorism or take advantage of the immigrant community, but not just them, but also the American community. And just the one side note I want to take with that is that the immigrant community is the American community. There's no standard Americans or old Americans or anything like that. There's just Americans. And the Ethiopians, no matter whether or not they're concerned, or the Senegalese or the Liberians or any of the groups I've talked to, yes, they're concerned about what happens back home, but they are Americans, and they make sure they tell you that. And they're more American than the Americans most of the time. They're busting their butts. They're working 2 jobs. They have businesses. They want everything that Americans used to think they want, and they definitely want, and they should want, which is opportunity for their children and a free country. I just thought I'd say that. I think that's important, that I don't view them as an immigrant community. I view them as Americans who came from another country recently. And man, that I don't know. It's something to prize, not something to be worried about. When it comes to immigration reform, your actual question, which was, we have an immigration policy, but no president or administration or Congress seems to have the guts to actually enforce it. It was done in 1996. It's not a half bad one. It's got tons of problems. And I imagine all of the legal immigrants that came from, the African communities out there would have preferred to be a little bit easier, especially when you're trying to get people over here from war-torn areas. You'd appreciate a little bit easier immigration policy. That needs to be reformed. It needs to be fixed. People that want to come here and want to be Americans need to be able to get here a lot more easily than they can right now. And absolutely, we need to know who's coming here before they get here. And if they're bad actors, they don't come. And that's our standard. That should be our standard immigration policy. What's going on at the southern border is something completely different. And that, honestly, that cheapens everybody else's sacrifice to get here legally. And since I'm talking to a community that did that, I know that's a real thing. Now, I don't blame those people for trying to do that, but it causes real problems. Now you have drug cartels. You have drug cartels running the border. They're starting to run your city. It's not good for any community, especially immigrant communities where they think they can hide. So those are 2 things that need to happen. I think we can make that happen in Congress. It's one of my primary concerns, because like you said, there's people that will come through bad actors and take advantage. They're not here to be Americans. They're here to take advantage. And the first place they're going to go is those immigrant American communities. So yeah, no, it needs to be tightened up. It should have it should be the number one priority for any Congress. It should be, Homeland Security and immigration should be in front of Congress on a weekly basis until it gets tightened up.
Right. The reason why we're bringing this concern, right, in terms of the immigration system and what atrocities the communities here can face. And when we talk about communities, somebody would say, oh yeah, that's the African community, or that's the Ethiopian community. And I don't think we see ourselves as separate people, even though, yes, we are named the Ethiopian community. We are Americans, and I always say this: as much as I am willing, ready, and able to fight for the country, Ethiopia, I am willing, ready, and able to fight for America, because this is where I belong. I value and respect and cherish being an American. The reason why I'm bringing this up, and it has been at least a question for me in the last few years, is because cyberbullying. How do we protect a community, a small community, a large community, a community that is trying to do what is right for their children and their community, but then also be a voice of their concern, and we face certain things. What do you think you can do to help with really sending a message to people that think social media is a place where you get to bully people?
Yeah, again, no, a huge, I do not, obviously, I'm not a big fan of social media and social media bullying. I think our children need to be protected from social media. There's probably something that needs to be done with that. And I don't think I could get into specifics, because it's going to be hotly contested policy about freedom of speech, what you can and can't say. But I will say, when it comes to children, there's something different. They're not the same. They should not be subject to the same level of bullying. When it comes to that, I take a much stronger view that something needs to be done. That needs to be filtered, and they need to be protected in some way. Children aren't adults. We have to protect them. When it comes to the bullying of adults, again, I would come back, especially in the community. When it's on a community level, then you need to have leadership that needs to step in, and people need to say, hey, that's not okay. That's inappropriate. Continue to do it, and we're just going to block you from everything. We're gonna cut you outside, and I'm not going to talk to you. And otherwise, you're going to need to come to that table peacefully and be civil. And if and because I don't know all the specifics of what you mean, but if there's people that just want to go on the attack, but they're still in the community in a position of authority and leadership, they need to know they're going to lose their seat at the table if they continue that. They're going to lose their ability to communicate with other people and with the positions of authority like U.S. Congress if they continue that. So that's kind of like two versions of what you're talking about, but it is broad. Not a fan. Cyberbullying, social media. I'm not a fan of social media. My children don't use social media because it's just too wide open. It's people lose their manners when it comes.
No kidding. Absolutely. I've never heard it that way. That's a good way of putting it. People do lose their manners. Oh my goodness. We have reasons for asking these questions because, we've seen it happen. It really is a cyber attack. It's beyond bullying. We just want to make sure that, people like yourself, who would be in an office and have the opportunity to be a voice where it matters, are informed. That leads me to another concern that impacts or causes the community to have a concern and fear, which is the increasing issue of death among the youth because of opioid and fentanyl.
Yeah, huge issue. One, it's just pouring across the southern border. You have to secure the border. There's no fail safe. It's going to find a way across, but at this point in time, it's just a free for all. It's going to come across. It's coming from China. So that's a place where it could be stopped and curtailed. They're going to try to sneak some of it through Canada, but it's much less. I don't remember the percentage, but it is pretty low. Most of it's coming from through Mexico. So somewhere It comes through either South America or directly to Mexico and gets shuttled through. And because we're at a distribution crossway in Denver, 25 and 70, we're catching the brunt of that. And it's killing the youth. There's also so this is part of empowering ICE to do their job. This is what they used to be able to do. They used to be able to go, there's a drug bust at a house, and instead of them, taking one person, they take all 10. And like, there you go, they cleaned them out. Drug cartels aren't nice people. Deporting them and sending them back to a prison in the country they came from, we should do that. That leaving them in the community is a horrible idea that somehow became policy over the last 2 to 4 years, especially in Colorado. You can, and I'll give a plug here for the governor, and that is, he has his hands all over that. I think it's SB 411. It prohibits the collaboration of state and local law enforcement with immigration, customs, and enforcement. So now they can't work together to deport actual violent felons, drug dealers. They can't work with them. So it makes them very hard to do their jobs. They have to do it independently. And consequently, we're getting a huge crime boost. And you've got, like I said, you have drug cartels running your city. And ICE can be, ICE will help that. If you don't have immigration, customs, and enforcement, then like you either want an immigration policy or you don't. And we have one, and it's there to keep the community safe from people who want to take advantage of the community, not who want to be in it. And that's part of why we have that fentanyl and opioid overdose problem. Some of it came from some state bills that, how much you had on you depend on how much crime and sentencing. Yes, those need to change, and we need to have a harsher outlook. That's a state issue, not a federal. But we can do a lot more with immigration, customs, and enforcement, and inability for the federal government to enforce its own immigration policy. And it's why you have everything from fentanyl overdose to car theft to bank robbery. Everything in Colorado suddenly went to like number one with a bullet. That's why. So yeah, we're heavily focused. That's one of my focuses because Colorado was so safe.
In 2021, I believe 100,000 youth lost to opioid and fentanyl.
Literally shameless politics, because it's what everybody knows is true, is they take advantage of those communities. They want your vote. And if it starts becoming clear that their policies are making your communities unsafe, they know they're going to lose your vote. And now it's unavoidable. And as long as that message gets out there and people open their eyes that these policies are not serving these communities. And Aurora has one of the most diverse immigrant communities in America. I've heard it's more than New York City. That's incredible. And we have a crime explosion there too. We need better. Americans can do better. We deserve better. And Americans and the people of the 6th district here in Colorado keep telling you the most important thing is safety in our streets, the safety of our children, the education they're going to get, the opportunity they're going to get, and whether or not we can put food on the table in the future. That is what's most important. I'll make you the promise that I will do different. And then I'll also say, if you don't like it, get rid of me. And I'm not voting with my party. I want to represent the people. I want to represent the people, honestly, that, when I first started politics, totally new. And, the first people that took me out for dinner and wanted to tell me what, hey, here's our issues and like, here's what we think. And it was the Ethiopian community. There you go. Very first one. You tell me that doesn't bring a little loyalty. It certainly does.
I know for the most part, for the longest time, we've been kind of quiet and we've been sort of silent when it comes to getting involved with politics. As an immigrant community, we had a purpose for being here. I believe we've been here long enough. We've assimilated. We've been here long enough. Our kids have grown. We've been here long, and we have been burnt enough times to say enough already. We're waking up. We're saying, wait, we really need to understand what it means to go out there and cast a vote. We're trying to also reach out to the community and do the best that we can to educate. It matters to us. Now we've learned it matters to us. It matters to me. I want to be educated. I want to be smart about how I vote and where I vote. And I will say it again, we've learned the hard way. We believed and we followed our loyalty for many, many, many years. And I'll say this because it's been said openly. The Ethiopian community, primarily the African community in general, have been sort of a party voter. We've been known to split our tickets, right? If I'm having this conversation and you're saying to me and the community, because this interview is going to go out there and they're going to hear you, and then they're going to ask you questions and they're going to say, you know what, I remember that conversation. When the time comes, I'm going to either vote this way or that way. And once they do, because they're going to remember this and say, so he did say they can come back and ask, and they will come back and ask. And that's what we're trying to do. Good. So we're not silenced. We're not fearful. And yes, it took time for us to finally say, wait, I guess we do have the freedom to speak, and that's how come we're speaking. And what resonates for a lot of us really is we want to make sure that our vote matters. And you know what? We saw it matter. We were able to go out there and make some things happen. And if you ask me, we're determined to do it just again. I am so grateful that you're open enough to say what you're saying. I'm going to bring it back to a local issue.
Perfect.
Do you believe young people under 18 should require parental consent to access abortion? Why or why not?
Yes. Why? Because the people under the age of 18 aren't adults. We haven't given them the full, they have unalienable rights, the life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. We cannot, infringe on those necessarily, but it's the parents. This is somewhere where the Democrats will disagree probably, but as a parent, you are the stakeholder in your children's life, and you're there to make sure that they don't make decisions that that will be just incredibly hard for them to recover from. You're there to help guide them. And, a parental consent for a lot of it's like getting a face tattoo. Like, you can't go get a face tattoo when you're 16 years old unless your parent says yes. Because it's permanent. It's a big deal. There's a lot of decisions that you're a child. Like, somebody has to have custody over you. We protect our children, and allowing them just to make huge monumental decisions outside of the parental influence. No, I'm sure they're going to come up with some one-off decision here and there that this would have made sense. I'm sure, cross that bridge when you get there. But for the most part, nope.
Okay. All right. We have a very diverse population, right? We have Christians, we have Muslims, and then there is the cultural background, so many different things. But what is your stand on the level of control teachers have had in the recent months and years to really influence our children, their identity? What do you say about that?
Yeah, so I'll speak to maybe the specifics that you're getting at. So we long since agreed that reading, writing, math, science, that's what, civics, geography, name an academic discipline. That's what we want our children taught. When it comes to the birds and the bees, when it comes to religion, when it comes to life philosophy, anything like that, that needs to be handled at home. Mm-hmm. And if you're going to start talking about whether or not we should be giving our kindergartners a sex ed education that looks a lot like an indoctrination or something mildly pornographic, no, that's just a hard no. And I'll tell you what, this isn't necessarily, I don't put this on the teachers. There's a lot of great teachers. Mm-hmm. They don't want to teach that either. Mm-hmm. You're always going to find the people that, they want to get their own agenda across to kids. No, that's not why you're an educator. You're there to educate, not indoctrinate. And so it needs to come out of the curriculum. It's not appropriate. Never was. We didn't actually agree on it. And you're taking my money. And again, back to school choice. If you could actually choose the school, you'd be running away from a school that did that. So those are kind of tied. No, so the level of influence, teachers have an incredible level of influence, but I want them to use that influence to teach my kids a little bit of manners. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am. No, ma'am. Kind of do what you're told, be quiet, stop talking during class. Those are great things. They'll learn some respect. Like I said, my kids have had great teachers, and then they're going to teach them reading, writing, math, science, the things that they're going to use with them when they go and make the world a better place. They're not going to make the world a better place by going over what's their preferred pronoun. So, easy question.
Easy question, easy answer, but a very complicated issue. And my very last question. The Republican Party should open up and warm up to the immigrant communities a lot more than they had in the past. I'm just going to be honest. I'm not saying they haven't 100%, but I think they could do better. What would you do? What would you do to break that door down and really make it a place for communities like ours to feel comfortable?
This one's real easy. Show up. Republicans don't show up. So I have since April, not a month out from the election. I've tried to come. Is it all like, you don't know anybody? We're out there, Republicans don't set up all these community organizations to kind of push their agenda. Republicans don't do that. Democrats do that. Mm-hmm. That's why you have all these little organizations that go out into the communities, and they're there to do good, but they're Democrats as well. And they push that agenda. And I get it. They're not necessarily doing bad things, but the policies of the people that you elect don't work out for you. Republicans need to show up. The Republican Party can show up. If you put a U.S. congressman in with your votes, then I will promise to bring more people in and to engage people in your community, city council, maybe one of these state seats, on the party. You bring people in, like, hey, there's people that from your community that are going to run on certain issues that are important for state seats. You're 50,000 people. Why isn't someone from that community running in a state seat right now? Like, they absolutely should. A state assembly seat, I mean. Mm-hmm. They could. Your U.S. congressman could be like, hey, I'm going to this event. Let me take some of the cultural leaders from the community, and you make connections. It's about, I think at the end of the day, it's caring whether or not that actually happens. The Republicans have been too tentative. Mm-hmm. And, quite frankly, I think they thought it was a lost cause, but I don't think it is. I think it's worth holding on to. I think those communities, they're conservative in every way. And I mean, think about what we just talked about when it came to schools. I don't think your average immigrant that comes here that was at church earlier this morning is really happy with the, like what's going on and being fed to their kids at school. No, they want an education. Change your vote. You have to. If you don't like what's happening, you have to change. Whatever it is. What promises could you possibly be made that you would be willing to sacrifice all of those things over and over again? It's not. You just have to have the ability to choose. It's going to be people like you. It's going to be people like some of the council members that go out there and tell people like, hey, do you want more of what you got? No. Vote for someone else. Switch. And if the new guy doesn't do the same thing that he promised, get rid of him. But I promise this, you guys shift your vote and you elect someone based on, we had, everyone from I think it's about 100,000 people make up the African immigrant community, the diaspora. Close. I might be a little off on that, but it's close. That's enough to shift an election in this seat. No one will ever ignore you again. And if they are, they're dumb. So they won't. You get to choose to have someone actually represent you, because you're like, hey, we're going to speak with a voice. Everybody took us for granted for so long, and they did it by infiltrating with their little community organizations and feeding us a bunch of promises. But when rubber met road and the kitchen table got hard to fill, their promises came up short. Mm-hmm. Time for someone new. And at the very, very, very least, that guy should have shown up. He should have had you at his office. He should have met you for coffee. He should have met you for dinner. What is he doing? Whatever it is, it isn't on your behalf. So that would be like, I mean, that's not really a pitch. That is what your community should be taking a look at in general, is someone who will do those things for you. And that's not a politician. That's just normal courteous, respectful human stuff. We go out there. Okay, you need I can do this. I'm representing you. I will talk to you. I want to know what you have, what's important. Am I showing? He was here. He had 2 years. He had 4 years elected.
Awesome. So here, I'm going to give you a couple more minutes where I'm done with my questions, even though I have a ton of questions that I like to ask. I would save those for another time, but take next maybe 2-3 minutes and say something to the community here, as well as what would you say to the people of Ethiopia back there that are really looking at the current administration and going, what in God's name is happening? What would you say to them, and what is your message here to the community? Take a moment.
Here's what I'll say back to people in Ethiopia. 1, if you want to come to America, we'd love to have you. 2, I can't think of anything worse than the United States of America being part of the problem in Ethiopia and not part of the solution. And the current administration, to which my opposition, Jason Crow, is a member and a rubber stamp 100%, they're causing problems. And they could have been part of the solution. They could have been part of this like renewal in Ethiopia, of having democratic elections and moving a new direction of unity, but they didn't. They stoked a fire of further division. That I can't have. No matter what side you're on, I don't think they really want it. The people in charge might want it, but the people themselves don't. And to the people back home in Ethiopia, I am more than happy and make a promise to go see what is going on where it matters most to you. With the rest of the African communities, as is available, and whatever their concerns are, more than happy to hear them. And if the American administration needs to get out of causing problems, I'm all for that. That fits right in that should be everybody's principles. America should not be part of the problem. It needs to either not be there or it needs to be part of the solution. So back home, and when it comes to all the social issues and the domestic issues and how much money's in your pocket, you don't have any success from your current representation. You don't have any leadership. You don't even have any communication. Don't be suckered in by some last second Hail Mary from the sky. Like, you haven't been given what you gave him. You gave him your vote and he didn't deliver. Make a change. That demand was already made of me by members of your community. And I already said I would, and I'm saying it again. I will do those things for you.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I've taken enough of your time. I didn't just listen, I've heard you, and a whole lot of people will listen to this and they will hear you. And like I said, we've learned the hard way. This is going to mean a lot to us. And thank you for taking time to do this conversation, discussion, interview with me. I look forward to maybe doing 1 or 2 more before election. Because I'm sure as we get close, there might be some more questions that people would want to hear from you. And I know there is one coming up, I believe October 10th, if I'm not mistaken. Unfortunately, I will not be there because I will be in Washington, D.C. doing yet another thing. I would have loved to be there. Like I said, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. We'll look forward to hearing from you more, and wish you all the best.
Thank you. I want you to know that you said thank you for your time, but I actually think of this as an opportunity. So I appreciate it.
Thank you. It means a lot. It's a great opportunity for us, for me too. So thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you.
This is Independent Voice, and I am Mamme.